Comic books offer fantastic villains of all types. This is because their authors have been given creative freedoms that just aren't possible in other forms of media. However, with this creative freedom comes the freedom to fail spectacularly. Nonsensical powers, odd motivations, poor backstories, and generally ludicrous premises have generated dozens of characters we'd rather forget. But not today. Oh no. These are 10 of the lamest comic book supervillains. Number 10 is Egg Foo. In recent editions of the DC Universe, Egg Foo is a super smart yellow giant cracked egg perched upon a contraption that allows him to move around and manipulate items. All in all, his modern iteration is not the worst character in existence. The original Egg Foo, however, is another story entirely. His original appearance portrayed him as tall as a house and sporting slanted eyes and a Fu Manchu moustache. Egg Foo was a horrifyingly blatant Asian stereotype. The worst part is that Egg Foo even talked in broken English. Many fans are happy that this character was rehabilitated in later releases, but others still believe that DC really should have just let this insulting egg be forgotten. Number 9 is Stiltman. Wilbur Day is the true name of this ridiculous villain, and he wasn't even competent enough to build a key piece of his supervillain battlesuit. Instead, he stole another scientist's hydraulic leg technology to transform himself into Stiltman. The legs could be used offensively, but their most notable power was their telescopic ability to make Wilbur Day extremely tall for some high-story heists. But, needless to say, this comic book villain only appeared in a handful of Daredevil comic books, before being quietly retired by Marvel. Number 8 is Lady Stiltman. But if that wasn't lame enough, somebody decided a character of Stiltman deserved a reboot, as a woman. Strangely enough though, the creators of Stiltman did not replace the word man with woman or girl, like so many female characters do. Instead, they named her Lady Stiltman. In one of Lady Stiltman's few comic book appearances, Spider-Man accused her of trying too hard. But he might have been addressing the writers instead. Number 7 is Asbestos Lady. One comic book villain who has not aged well is the tragically named Asbestos Lady. This villain of the 1940s wore asbestos-lined clothing, robbed banks, and then set fires to delay the police. As everyone likely knows, asbestos, aside from being the cause of countless lung diseases, is also a pretty good flame retardant. This was a very lazy way of creating an adversary for the Human Torch, as her asbestos clothing made her immune to direct attacks from him. Although it didn't stop him from melting the asphalt beneath her feet and freezing her in place. But according to in-universe comic book canon, Asbestos Lady eventually died of cancer, presumably from her choice of fashion. Number 6 is Mopey. Mopey might not be a classic villain, but he was antagonising, both to the Flash and to comic book readers. Since the beginning, it's been known that the Flash received his powers through a chemical accident during an electrical storm. In 1967, however, it was revealed that an extra-dimensional being called Mopey deliberately gave Flash his abilities. And everyone ignored it. Sort of like the way Highlander 2 doesn't exist. Mopey appeared in just a single issue of The Flash, and has since been retconned out of existence through everyone's sheer refusal to even acknowledge his existence. Number 5 is Codpiece Man. Codpiece Man is exactly what he sounds like. A man with comically large equipment between his legs, including a cannon, a boxing glove, giant scissors, and a drill. Codpiece Man, whose real name is never established, suffered a string of failed relationships, which he erroneously believed had to do with the size of his codpiece. Some people go to therapy for such perceptions. Codpiece Man, however, instead chose to become a supervillain. As you do. Number 4 is Ten-Eyed Man. According to DC Comics canon, Philip Reardon's eyes were injured in Vietnam, then again in an explosion back in the States, leaving him permanently blind. Luckily for him, a doctor was able to transplant his optic nerves. Unfortunately, he transplanted them into his fingers. So of course, in typical comic book fashion, Ten-Eyed Man blamed Batman for what happened to him, and fought Batman on 2 occasions, coming up short both times. This is because he could be injured simply from being tricked into catching or touching something. After his first appearance in 1970, he was rarely seen in comic books after that. Number 3 is Kite Man. As a child, Charles Brown, no not that Charlie Brown, was fascinated by kites. So when he decided to take up a life of crime, integrating kites into his MO somehow made sense. He travelled on a rocket-powered kite, which looks suspiciously like a rocket-powered hang glider. But let's not get hung up on words here. He also had a variety of kite gadgets, including a giant kite which assisted in escape attempts from prison. There was also a flashbulb kite, and of course a kite that sported a trap net. Seeing as there isn't much a writer can do with a supervillain that exclusively makes use of kites, his appearances were few and far between after the 1970s. Number 2 is Hypno Hustler. In true 1970s comic book fashion, Hypno Hustler's guitar allowed him to hypnotise people, and when performing with his band, he could extend that influence over crowds. He of course could use this power to rob people, demanding concert goers to hand over their wallets, even though after the price of admission for most concerts, people shouldn't have anything left in their wallets. The Hypno Hustler, of course, was not immune to his own gadgets, and Spider-Man defeated him by removing his protective headphones. All in all, Hypno Hustler has not seen a modern revival, unlike other supervillains on this list, because he has received very negative reviews from comic book fans, thanks to the character's rather outdated camp factor. And number 1 is the Walrus, Cuckoo Cachoo. Rounding out this top 10 is the Walrus, who seems to have been designed on the back of a napkin. Hubert Carpenter was engineered by his mad scientist uncle to have the, and I quote, proportionate speed, strength and agility of a walrus. Regardless of lexicon, the walrus seems to have also inherited a walrus's intelligence. As in, he wasn't very bright. He regularly bungled criminal escapades. His motivations were similarly underdeveloped, rather than wanting power or money for revenge. For the most part, it appears he just wanted to break things. Even the walrus's Wikipedia page can't seem to take this supervillain seriously. It lists his abilities as minimal superhuman strength, agility and endurance, good at crossword puzzles, ability to distract enemies by making them laugh uncontrollably, holding his breath much longer than humans, and survive in freezing water via his layer of blubber. For more top lists just like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget to check out our other lists. But thanks for watching, and thanks for learning.